On November 22nd, 2023, 3 weeks after my husband's funeral, my daughter looked me in the eye across the kitchen table and said, "Mom, you need to contribute $1,500 a month or you need to leave by Friday." I'm Josephine Fairmont. I'm 68 years old. I smiled, took a sip of my coffee, and said, "Okay." Then I decided to do something about it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, from the day everything I thought I knew about my life fell apart. The house still smelled like funeral flowers, not the pleasant kind, the cloying, too sweet scent of lilies that makes you think of death instead of life. They'd been wilting in vases throughout the house for 3 weeks now, ever since we'd buried Daniel Marcus Fairmont in the family plot at Riverside Cemetery on November 1st, 2023. I was standing in my kitchen, well, my kitchen in the emotional sense, though legally, as I was about to discover, it belonged to someone else entirely. It was 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember the exact time because I'd been watching the clock, waiting for Colette to arrive. She'd texted that morning. "Need to talk, important. 2:30. She was 17 minutes late. The kitchen looked exactly as it had for the past 45 years of my marriage to Daniel. Same white ceramic countertops I'd picked out in 1978. Same blue-checked curtains I'd sewn by hand in 1989. Same coffee maker, a Mr. Coffee that Daniel had bought me for our 20th anniversary because he knew I loved my morning ritual. Daniel's favorite coffee mug was still on the drying rack. I hadn't been able to put it away. It was a silly thing, really, a white ceramic mug with "World's Best Dad" printed on it. A Father's Day gift from Colette when she was 7. 23 years ago, back when she still thought her parents were worth celebrating. I heard her car in the driveway before I saw her. A Mercedes-Benz C-Class, silver 2022 model. I knew because she'd made a point of telling me the price tag when she bought it. $68,000. "An investment in my career image," she'd said. "Real estate is all about perception, Mom." The car door slammed with that expensive, solid thunk that luxury vehicles make. Through the window, I watched my daughter, my only child, the baby I'd carried for 9 months and raised for 42 years, check her reflection in the side mirror before walking to the door. Colette had her father's strong jawline and dark eyes, but none of his warmth. At 42, she was striking rather than beautiful, with that sharp, polished look that successful real estate agents cultivate. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a perfect chignon. Her navy pantsuit probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Her heels clicked against the walkway with the aggressive confidence of someone who knew exactly what they wanted and had no qualms about taking it. She didn't knock. Why would she? This was her house now, though I hadn't known it yet. "Mom?" She set her Prada handbag on the counter. I knew it was Prada because of the triangle logo and because she'd mentioned it cost $2,400, and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not quite pity, not quite annoyance, something in between. "Hi, sweetheart." I set down the dish towel I'd been holding. "Can I get you some coffee? I just made a fresh pot." "No, I can't stay long. Michael's expecting me home by 4. We're having the Hendersons over for dinner." She pulled out a chair and sat down, crossing her legs. "We need to talk about the situation here." The situation, that's what she called it. Not your grief, or how you're doing, or even the house. The situation. "What situation is that, honey?" I remained standing, something in her tone making me cautious. Colette reached into her handbag and pulled out a manila folder. She set it on the table between us with the careful precision of someone dealing cards. "The will was read 2 weeks ago. You were there." I was. I remembered sitting in Gerald Patterson's office, Daniel's lawyer for 30 years, feeling numb as he'd read through the legal language I could barely process. All I'd heard was that everything was well provided for and that I shouldn't worry. Gerald had patted my hand and told me to focus on grieving, that the paperwork could wait. "Then you know that Daddy left the house to me." The words hung in the air like the smell of those funeral lilies, heavy, inescapable. I sat down slowly, my 68-year-old knees protesting slightly. "He left it to you?" "He wanted to make sure it was protected. You know how you are with money, Mom. Daddy always said you couldn't balance a checkbook to save your life. She said it pleasantly, as if she were commenting on the weather. The house is in my name, free and clear. Daddy paid off the mortgage 3 years ago. Did you know that? I didn't. Daniel had handled all the finances. I'd been a nurse before we married, but he'd preferred I stay home after Colette was born. Your job is taking care of our family, he'd said. And I had. For 42 years, I'd taken care of our family. I see. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I've been going over the numbers with Michael. Colette opened the folder and pulled out a spreadsheet. Of course she'd made a spreadsheet. The utilities here run about $400 a month. Property taxes are $6,200 a year, which breaks down to about $517 a month. Insurance is another $200. Then there's maintenance, repairs, lawn care. She was itemizing my life like a business expense report. Colette, let me finish, Mom. Her voice had an edge now. The total carrying costs on this property are roughly $1,500 a month. Your Social Security check is, let me see, $817? $812, I corrected quietly. Right, $812, which leaves a shortfall of $688 monthly that either Michael and I cover, or, she paused, meeting my eyes directly, or you contribute your full share and we split it. $1,500 a month. I said it slowly, processing. Colette, I know the numbers are tight, but Mom, I have my own family to think about. Michael lost his job at Brennan Solutions 3 weeks ago. We have the twins to support. They're applying to colleges next year. Do you know what tuition costs now? We have our own mortgage. I can't carry you financially. Carry me. As if I were a burden she'd been shouldering all these years, rather than the mother who'd raised her, who'd worked 2 part-time jobs to help pay for her college, who'd babysat those twins every weekend for free when Colette needed to show houses. I have a solution, though. Colette pulled out another paper. There's a job posting. Private nursing care. The pay is excellent. $4,500 a month plus room and board. You were a nurse before you married Daddy. It's perfect. She slid the paper across the table. I looked down at it without picking it up. Private caregiver needed. Live-in position for gentlemen requiring assistance with daily activities. Nursing background preferred. Competitive salary. Private accommodations. Meals included. References required. You already applied for me? I asked. I already got you an interview, tomorrow at 10 o'clock. The address is on there. It's about 20 minutes away. Some mansion in the hills. Eleanor Sullivan recommended you. Eleanor. My old nursing school friend who'd stayed in the field. She must have seen the listing through her professional network. And if I don't get the job? The question came out before I could stop it. Colette stood up, smoothing her skirt. Her face was a careful blank. Then you'll need to find somewhere else to live. Mom, I'm sorry, but I can't carry you forever. You're 68, not 88. You're perfectly capable of working. And the reality is, this is my house now. I have to do what's best for my family. My family, not our family, not your part of my family, just my family. By when? I asked. By Friday. The job starts Monday if you get it. If not, well, you'll need to make other arrangements. She picked up her Prada bag, kissed my cheek, a dry, perfunctory peck that held no warmth, and walked out. The Mercedes started up, and through the window, I watched my daughter drive away without looking back. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time after she left. The wall clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the house, I heard the furnace kick on. The November cold was settling in early this year. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since I'd buried the man I'd spent 45 years with, and my daughter had just given me 3 days to either find a job or become homeless. I looked down at the job posting still on the table. Then I looked at Daniel's coffee mug on the drying rack. And for the first time since the funeral, I started to laugh. The next morning, Wednesday, November 23rd, I woke up at 5:47 a.m. Not because of an alarm, but because I'd barely slept. I'd spent most of the night going through boxes in the attic, looking for something I hadn't seen in decades. I found it at 3:15 a.m., A small velvet jewelry box, dark blue, no bigger than my palm. Inside was a silver ring, simple, unadorned, slightly tarnished, and underneath it, wrapped in tissue paper that had yellowed with age, was a photograph. I'd looked at that photograph for exactly 6 minutes by the light of the attic bulb before carefully rewrapping everything and bringing it downstairs. Now it sat in my purse, waiting. At 8:30 a.m., Eleanor Sullivan arrived at my door carrying 2 thermoses of coffee and a determined expression. "Don't even start," she said, pushing past me into the house. "Colette called me last night. Told me to make sure you showed up for this interview looking presentable." She said the word with such distaste that I almost smiled. "As if you've ever looked anything but dignified in your life." Eleanor and I had been friends since nursing school in 1973. She was 70 now, officially retired, but still doing consulting work for home health agencies. She'd kept her nursing license active, kept her skills sharp. I'd let mine lapse in 1979 when I married Daniel. "I haven't worked as a nurse in 44 years, Ellie." "So? You've been a caregiver your whole life. Just because you weren't getting paid for it doesn't mean you don't have the skills." She handed me a coffee. "Drink. Then go put on that nice blue dress, the one you wore to Daniel's cousin's wedding. We need to leave by 9:15 to get you there on time." Ellie, Josie. She used my nickname, the one only old friends still called me. "I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is humiliating. You're thinking you're too old. You're thinking you should have seen this coming from Colette." She set down her coffee and took both my hands in hers. "But here's what I know. You're one of the smartest, most capable women I've ever met. You raised a daughter, ran a household, and managed every crisis that came your way for 45 years. Some entitled man who can't work his wheelchair is lucky to get you." I squeezed her hands. "Did Colette tell you about the deadline? Friday?" "She did. Which is why we're going to nail this interview. You're going to get this job, and you're going to show your daughter that Josephine Marie Fairmont does not roll over and quit." 40 minutes later, I was sitting in Eleanor's Honda Civic, wearing my blue dress and my mother's pearl necklace, driving up a long, winding driveway that seemed to go on forever. "Jesus," Eleanor breathed as the house came into view. She called it a mansion, but I thought she was exaggerating. She wasn't. The house was Georgian style, probably built in the 1920s but recently renovated. 3 stories, cream-colored stone, black shutters, perfectly manicured gardens even in late November. The driveway ended in a circular courtyard with a fountain in the center, dormant now for winter, but clearly expensive. I counted 12 windows across the front of the house. 12. My entire house could have fit in one wing. "You've got this," Eleanor said as I reached for the door handle. "Remember, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you." I wasn't sure I believed that, but I nodded anyway. The doorbell played the actual melody, not a simple ding-dong, but the first 4 notes of Beethoven's Für Elise. I'd barely finished pressing it when the door opened. The woman who answered was in her mid-50s, with steel-gray hair pulled into a neat bun and the kind of posture that suggested military training or decades of ballet. She wore a crisp white blouse and black slacks, and she looked me up and down with the practiced assessment of someone who'd interviewed hundreds of people. "Mrs. Fairmont?" Her voice was professional, but not unkind. "Yes, Josephine Fairmont. I have a 10 o'clock appointment." "Margaret Sullivan. I'm Mr. Hawthorne's house manager." She stepped back to let me enter. "Please come in." The entrance hall was, well, calling it an entrance hall seemed insufficient. It was larger than my living room. Marble floors. Real marble, I could tell by the veining. A crystal chandelier that had to be original to the house. A curved staircase with an ornate wrought iron railing. Paintings on the walls that looked like they belonged in museums. This was old money. The kind of money that whispers instead of shouts. "Mr. Hawthorne is expecting you in the study," Margaret said, leading me down a hallway. "But first, I should explain the position requirements." She walked briskly, and I found myself cataloging details as we passed. More artwork, fresh flowers in crystal vases, every surface gleaming with careful maintenance. This wasn't just a house. It was an estate, and someone, probably Margaret, ran it with military precision. Mr. Hawthorne is 70 years old. He was in a car accident 5 years ago, October 14th, 2018 to be exact. The accident resulted in paraplegia from the T10 to L1 vertebrae. She glanced back to see if I understood the medical terminology. I nodded. Thoracic to lumbar. He has no sensation or movement from roughly the belly button down. Correct. He uses a manual wheelchair, refuses the electric models. He can transfer himself independently for the most part, but requires assistance with bathing, dressing, and personal care. He also needs monitoring for autonomic dysreflexia, which is a dangerous spike in blood pressure that can occur in spinal cord injuries, I finished. Symptoms include severe headache, flushing, sweating above the injury level. It's a medical emergency. Margaret stopped walking and turned to face me fully. Mrs. Fairmont, I was told you haven't practiced nursing in over 40 years. I haven't, but I never forgot my training, and I paused, choosing my words carefully. I've spent the past 5 years caring for my husband through late-stage cancer. I'm familiar with medical emergencies. Something in Margaret's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. We'd reached a set of double doors. Margaret knocked twice, then opened them without waiting for a response. Mr. Hawthorne, this is Mrs. Josephine Fairmont. The study was everything the rest of the house had promised. Floor-to-ceiling built-in bookshelves, a massive mahogany desk, Persian rugs over hardwood floors, and windows overlooking gardens that probably looked spectacular in spring. And there, positioned by the window in a custom-built manual wheelchair, was a man I didn't recognize but somehow felt I should. He was 70, Margaret had said, and he looked it, but in the way that some men do, where age adds character rather than diminishing it. Silver hair, still thick. Strong features, high cheekbones, a jaw that suggested stubbornness, straight nose. He wore an expensive casual button-down shirt, perfectly pressed, and dark slacks. His hands on the wheelchair's rims were strong, capable, but it was his eyes that stopped me. Blue. Deep blue. The kind you rarely see except in old photographs or carefully lit movies. He was studying me just as intently as I was studying him. Mrs. Fairmont. His voice was cultured, educated, with just a hint of something I couldn't place. Not quite warmth, but not cold either. Curiosity, maybe. Please sit down. I lowered myself into the leather chair across from where he'd positioned himself. Margaret closed the doors quietly as she left. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. He continued to study me, and I fought the strangest urge to touch my hair, my necklace, anything to break that penetrating gaze. You were a cardiac nurse, he finally said. Not a question. At St. Mary's Hospital, 1974 to 1979. Yes. How did you? Eleanor Sullivan and I have mutual friends. I asked about your background. He wheeled his chair slightly closer. Tell me why you stopped. I got married. My husband preferred I stay home. The truth came out before I could soften it. And now your husband has passed and you need work. Again, not a question. Yes. And your daughter? Something flickered across his face. I understand she's the one who arranged this interview. How much had Eleanor told him? My daughter is concerned about her own family's finances. She suggested I might be suited for this position. I see. He leaned back slightly, still watching me. Do you know what happened to my last caregiver, Mrs. Fairmont? No, sir. She quit after 6 days, said I was impossible to work with. The one before her lasted 3 weeks. The one before that, 10 days. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. Margaret tells me I've had 17 caregivers in 2 years. Do you know why they leave? I imagine you're demanding. I prefer particular. The almost smile again. But yes, demanding works. I require my morning coffee at precisely 7:15 a.m., not 7:20. I have specific preferences for how my medications are organized. I become frustrated when things aren't done correctly. Because you've lost control of so much, I said quietly. So you control what you can. The almost smile disappeared. He was very still for a moment. "Yes," he finally said. "Exactly that." Something passed between us then. Not attraction, not yet, but recognition. The recognition of two people who'd both learned that life doesn't care about your plans. "Mrs. Fairmont, Josephine, or Josie if you prefer." "Josephine, then." He seemed to test the name. "I need someone who can do more than just handle medical tasks. I need someone I can trust, someone who won't gossip about my personal affairs, someone who won't treat me like an invalid or a patient." He paused. "Can you be that person?" I thought about Colette's ultimatum. I thought about the house I was about to lose. I thought about Daniel's coffee mug and 45 years of being invisible in my own life. "Yes," I said. "I can be that person. The salary is $4,500 monthly, plus a private suite, meals, health care coverage through my insurance. Trial period of 1 month. If either of us is unhappy at the end of 30 days, you leave with a full month's severance." $4,500, more than 5 times my Social Security check. "When would you need me to start?" "Monday, November 27th. He extended his hand to shake mine. "Do we have an agreement?" I stood and took his hand. His grip was firm, warm. "We have an agreement, Mr. Hawthorne. Theodore, or Theo, if you prefer." As our hands touched, I felt the strangest sensation, like a key turning in a lock I didn't know existed. And for just a moment, I could have sworn I saw the same confusion, the same flicker of something, cross his face. "Welcome to my home, Josephine," he said quietly. I pulled my hand back and smiled. "Thank you. I'll do my best not to become caregiver number 18 who quits." "I suspect," he said, wheeling his chair back toward the window, "that you're going to surprise both of us." He had no idea how right he was. Monday, November 27th, 2023, 6:42 a.m. I stood in the doorway of what Margaret called the caregiver's suite, with my 3 suitcases and 2 cardboard boxes, everything I owned that Colette had allowed me to take from the house. The suite was larger than the entire first floor of the home I'd lived in for 45 years. Bedroom, approximately 15 by 18 feet, with a queen-sized bed, antique dresser, 2 nightstands, and a reading chair by the window. Sitting room, another 12 by 14 feet, with a small sofa, coffee table, and built-in bookshelves. Bathroom, full-sized with a walk-in shower that had grab bars and a built-in bench. Accessible design, but elegant. The whole suite was decorated in soft blues and creams, with cream-colored curtains that let in the morning light without being too bright. Someone, Margaret probably, had left fresh flowers on the dresser. White roses. Real ones, not silk. I set down my suitcases and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was firm, but not hard. Hotel quality. Probably cost more than my entire bedroom set at home. At the old house, I corrected myself, not home anymore. "Mrs. Fairmont?" Margaret's voice from the doorway made me look up. "I've prepared breakfast in the morning room. Mr. Hawthorne takes his meals at 7:30 sharp. You have 43 minutes. 43 minutes. Not about 45 or plenty of time. 43. "Thank you, Margaret. I'll be ready." She nodded and left. I heard her footsteps, practical flats, probably rubber-soled for quiet movement through the house, fade down the hallway. I unpacked quickly, efficiently. Clothes in the dresser, toiletries in the bathroom, my few books on the shelf. The cardboard boxes I left sealed for now. They contained photo albums, a few pieces of jewelry, some papers I hadn't sorted through yet. Things I couldn't leave behind but didn't quite know what to do with. At exactly 7:28 a.m., I made my way downstairs. The morning room was on the east side of the house, positioned to catch the sunrise. Smaller than the formal dining room I'd glimpsed yesterday, but still elegant. A round table that could seat 6 tall windows, and that morning light pouring in like liquid gold. Theodore was already there, positioned at the table with his wheelchair pulled up. He wore a different button-down shirt today, light gray, crisp as yesterday's, and was reading the Wall Street Journal, a physical newspaper, not a tablet or phone. "Good morning," I said from the doorway. He looked up, and I saw him clock the exact time. 7:29 a.m., 1 minute early. "Good morning, Josephine. Please sit." He gestured to the chair to his left. "Coffee?" "Please." He poured from a French press, steady hands, no tremor, into a ceramic mug that probably cost $40. The coffee was excellent. Dark roast, freshly ground. "Margaret will bring breakfast shortly," he said, returning to his newspaper. "I hope you found the suite acceptable." "It's beautiful, thank you." "Good." He turned a page. "Your schedule. We breakfast at 7:30. Physical therapy 3 days a week at 9 o'clock a.m. Therapist comes here. I work from 10 o'clock a.m. to noon in my study. Lunch at 12:30. Afternoon is flexible, though I have calls most days at 2 o'clock p.m. Dinner at 6:30. Evening is my own time, though I'll need assistance with—" He paused, the first break in his professional tone. "Evening care around 9 o'clock p.m. Evening care, the polite euphemism for the intimate, undignified work of helping a paralyzed man prepare for bed." "I understand," I said quietly. Margaret entered with breakfast, poached eggs, wheat toast, fresh fruit. She set plates in front of both of us with practiced efficiency, then disappeared again. We ate in silence. Theodore read his newspaper. I looked out at the gardens, where gardeners were already at work, despite the November cold. This was my life now, this quiet, ordered, expensive existence in a stranger's house. Except he didn't feel quite like a stranger. Tuesday, November 28th, 7:15 a.m. I learned that Theodore took his coffee black, exactly 180 degrees Fahrenheit, in a specific mug, white ceramic, no decoration, from a set of 6 in the third cabinet. 9 o'clock a.m. Physical therapy session with Robert Chen, PT, DPT. I watched from the corner as Theodore worked through exercises. Upper body strength, transfers, flexibility. His jaw clenched when he struggled. He never asked for help. 11:30 a.m. Found him in his study on a conference call. Through the open door, I heard him discussing commercial property acquisition in downtown Seattle. Numbers: $7.3 million for the building, projected renovation costs of $2.8 million. His voice was sharp, commanding. This was a man who'd built an empire. Wednesday, November 29th. Morning incident. Coffee was ready at 7:16 a.m. instead of 7:15. Theodore noticed, said nothing, but I saw the flicker of irritation. Afternoon. He asked me to read him the business section of the newspaper while he sorted through mail. My voice seemed to relax him, though he'd never admit it. Evening. First time assisting with evening care. He was rigid with embarrassment, despite my professional demeanor. "I hate this," he muttered as I helped him transfer to the bed. "Every goddamn day I hate this." "I know," I said simply. Not "it's okay" or "don't worry about it." Just acknowledgement. He looked at me then, really looked, and some of the tension left his shoulders. Thursday, November 30th. Colette called at 10:47 a.m. I was in my suite, making the bed. "Mom, how's the job?" Not "how are you?" "How's the job?" "It's fine, sweetheart. Mr. Hawthorne is he paying you on time? Did you sign a contract? Did you read it before signing?" "Yes to all 3. "Good, because I can't help you if this falls through. Michael still hasn't found work, and the twins need—" She continued talking, but I'd stopped listening, just making the appropriate sounds. Yes, I understand." After she hung up, I sat on my bed for exactly 7 minutes, staring at the wall. Then I went back to work. Friday, December 1st. First paycheck deposited, $4,500 minus taxes. Net, $3,712.50. More money than I'd ever earned in a month in my life. I transferred $1,500 to Colette immediately. Sent a text. First month's contribution. Let me know if you need it, sent differently next month. Her reply came 3 hours later. Got it. Thanks. Not thank you. Mom or I appreciate this, or how are you doing? Just got it. Thanks. I was learning that my daughter and I spoke different languages now. Saturday, December 2nd, weekend. Theodore mentioned almost casually that I had Saturdays and Sundays off from 2 o'clock p.m. to 7 p.m. You'll need breaks, he said. Margaret handles weekend coverage. I spent my first free afternoon in my suite, finally unpacking those cardboard boxes. In the second box, beneath a layer of old tax returns and medical records from Daniel's illness, I found it. The blue leather photo album. I'd forgotten I'd packed it. Must have thrown it in during those frantic final hours at the house when Colette was standing over me saying, "Just take what fits in the car, Mom. I need the spare room cleaned out by Monday." I sat on my bed, the album in my lap, and I didn't open it. Not yet. Something told me that once I opened it, something would change. Some door would open that I wouldn't be able to close. Outside my window, I could hear Theodore in the garden below. Margaret had taken him out for afternoon air. His voice drifted up, discussing something about the roses, whether they'd survive the winter. I put the album in my nightstand drawer and went downstairs to make tea. Sunday, December 3rd, week 1 complete. At dinner that evening, Theodore said, "You're still here?" "I am." "Most people quit by now." He was cutting his chicken. He could do that himself, had made it clear he wanted to do everything he physically could. "You're either very patient or very desperate." "Maybe both," I said honestly. He smiled. Actually smiled, the first real one I'd seen. It changed his entire face, softened those hard lines. "I think I'm going to like having you here, Josephine." And despite everything, despite Colette, despite being 68 and starting over, despite the strangeness of this entire situation, I smiled back. "I think I'm going to like being here, Theodore." Monday, December 4th, 7:15 a.m. Coffee ready. Theodore nodded approval. 9:47 a.m. Noticed something odd. In his study, there was a small table by the window with photographs. All in expensive frames, probably sterling silver. But the photographs weren't of family. They were of places. City skylines, buildings, properties, I realized. His real estate empire. No people, no family photos at all. "You never married?" I asked before I could stop myself. He looked up from his laptop. "No." "Why not?" That's a very personal question for someone who's been working here 8 days. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. I was engaged once." He turned back to his screen. "A long time ago. It didn't work out." Something in his voice made me not ask more. Tuesday, December 5th. Physical therapy. Robert mentioned, "You're doing better this week, Mr. Hawthorne. More range of motion in the shoulders." Theodore grunted. "Josephine makes me do the stretches she learned in nursing school. Morning and evening." Robert looked at me with new respect. "Smart. Most caregivers skip that." After he left, Theodore said, "Thank you for the stretches." "Of course." "No, I mean," he paused. "Most people do the minimum. You don't." "I was a good nurse, Theodore. I may not have practiced in 44 years, but I was good at it." "I believe you." Wednesday, December 6th. Colette called again. 2:13 p.m. "Mom, I need you to sign some papers about the house." "What papers?" "Just transfer of utilities into my name. Final paperwork. Can you come by Friday?" "I work until 9 p.m., Colette." "Saturday, then. Noon. Don't be late. Michael and I have plans at 1. She hung up before I could respond. Thursday, December 7th. Evening. After dinner, Theodore asked, "Do you play chess?" "I haven't in years." "Would you like to?" We played in the library. He won easily. I was rusty, distracted. But halfway through the game, he said, "You're thinking 4 moves ahead. You just keep second-guessing yourself." "Story of my life," I said without thinking. His eyes met mine. "Then perhaps it's time to stop second-guessing." I moved my bishop. "Checkmate in 3. He looked at the board, laughed, a real laugh, surprised and delighted. "I'll be damned. You hustled me. I was a good nurse and a good chess player. I contain multitudes, Theodore." Something shifted between us that night. Not romance yet. We were still too formal, too careful, but friendship, the beginning of it. Friday, December 8th. Margaret mentioned casually while preparing lunch, "He likes you." "I'm sorry?" Mr. Hawthorne, he likes you. I can tell. She arranged sandwiches on a plate. He hasn't played chess with anyone in 3 years, and he's smiling again. He seems lonely, I said carefully. He is. Has been for longer than I've worked here. She looked at me directly. Be patient with him. He's forgotten how to let people in. Saturday, December 9th. Noon at the old house. Colette answered the door. The house looked different. Michael's golf clubs in the corner where my reading chair used to be. The twins' college brochures spread across the dining table. Colette's laptop and files covering every surface. Papers are in the kitchen, she said, not inviting me further inside. I signed where she indicated. Transfer of electric bill, water bill, gas bill. My name erased from the utilities I'd paid for 45 years. How's the job really going? Colette asked, but she was checking her phone while asking. It's good. Mr. Hawthorne is kind. Kind enough to give you a raise? She was joking, but there was an edge to it. Colette? I'm kidding, Mom. Jesus, you're so sensitive. She glanced at her watch. I need to get ready. Lock the door when you leave? I drove back to the Hawthorne mansion. When had I started thinking of it as going back rather than going to? And found Theodore in the conservatory, reading. How is your daughter? He asked without looking up. Fine. You're a terrible liar, Josephine. I sat in the chair across from him. She's busy with her own life. It's natural. Natural and hurtful are not mutually exclusive. He closed his book. You don't have to pretend with me. I won't judge you for being hurt. I looked at him, really looked. Silver hair catching the afternoon light. Blue eyes, patient and knowing. Face that suggested he'd been hurt too, in ways he didn't talk about. Thank you, I whispered. You're welcome. Sunday, December 10th. Week 2, complete. That evening, alone in my suite, I finally opened the blue leather photo album. I don't know what made me open it that night. Maybe it was the way Theodore had looked at me earlier. Maybe it was the fact that I'd been living in this house for 2 weeks and still felt like I was waiting for something, though I didn't know what. The album was old. The leather cover was cracked at the corners, faded from blue to almost gray. Inside, the pages were that heavy paper they used to use, with little corner slots to hold photographs in place. The first page, my high school graduation, 1973, me in cap and gown, holding my diploma, smiling that bright, hopeful smile of someone who thought the world was full of possibilities. Next pages, nursing school, me and Eleanor and 3 other girls, all in our crisp white uniforms. We looked so young. We were young. I was 20 years old in those photos. I turned the page, and there he was. The photograph was faded, the colors bleeding slightly the way old Polaroids do. Summer, 1977, Millbrook Lake. I was wearing a yellow sundress I'd sewn myself from a pattern in McCall's magazine. My hair was long, dark brown, pulled back with a ribbon. And beside me, arm around my waist, was a young man with dark hair and bright blue eyes, and a smile that suggested he knew secrets the rest of the world didn't. We were 24 years old. So young, so impossibly young. I touched the photograph with one finger, tracing the outline of his face. Terry, Theodore Terry Hawthorne. My hand started shaking. I turned the page. More photographs. Murphy's Diner on Main Street. Terry and me sharing a cherry Coke with 2 straws. His handwriting on the back. July 12, 1977. Josie says cherry Coke is too sweet, but drinks it anyway. County Fair. Terry winning a stuffed bear at the ring toss. Me laughing, holding the bear. August 1977. The lake again. Sunset. Terry's arms around me from behind, my hands covering his. Both of us looking at the camera. Eleanor must have taken it. We looked so happy, so certain. Train station. October 14th, 1977. Terry's suitcase at his feet. Me crying, him cupping my face, promising something the camera couldn't capture. I remembered that day. God, I remembered that day. I'm going to Seattle, Josie. 6 months, maybe a year. I'm going to work for this real estate development company. They're looking for smart young men who aren't afraid of hard work. I'm going to learn the business, make some money, come back and marry you properly. A year is so long, Terry. I'll write every week, more if I can, and I'll come back for you, I promise. Will you wait for me? Yes, I'll wait. The next page made my breath catch. A small silver ring taped to the paper with yellowing Scotch tape. Simple band, slightly tarnished now. Engraved inside, T.H. to J.B., forever. Theodore Hawthorne to Josephine Brennan, forever. The last item in the album wasn't a photograph. It was a letter. The envelope was addressed in Terry's handwriting. Miss Josephine Brennan, 847 Maple Street, Apartment 2B, Millbrook, Connecticut. Postmarked October 15th, 1978, 1 year and 1 day after he'd left. I'd never opened it. Daniel had given it to me 3 weeks after our wedding. This came for you, he'd said quietly. Return address is Seattle. From before. I'd hidden it in this album and never looked at it again. Now, 45 years later, my hands trembling, I opened it. The paper was yellowed, fragile. Terry's handwriting, strong, confident, unchanged by time. My dearest Josie, I did it. The first major deal closed yesterday, a commercial property development on Fifth Avenue. My profit, $287,000. It's more money than I've ever seen in my life, and it's just the beginning. I'm coming home. I've already bought the house on Elm Street. Remember we used to walk past it every Sunday after church? You always said it was perfect. It's ours now. Closing date is November 30th. I know I promised 6 months and it's been a year. I know my letters became less frequent these past few months. Things got so busy, Josie, busier than I could have imagined. But I never stopped thinking about you. Every deal I closed, every property I sold, I thought, this brings me 1 step closer to being able to give Josie the life she deserves. I'll be home December 15th. Meet me at Murphy's Diner at noon. I have a ring, a real one this time, with diamonds, and I have a question I've been waiting a year to ask. Wait for me. Just 2 more weeks. All my love, all my dreams, all my tomorrows. Terry. The letter shook in my hands. December 15th, 1978. I'd married Daniel Fairmont on December 1st, 1978, 2 weeks before Terry came home for me. I'd waited for him. God, I'd waited. For 6 months, his letters came regularly. Funny stories about Seattle, about learning the real estate business, about missing me. Then they slowed. 7 months, 8 months. By 10 months, I hadn't heard from him in weeks. My father was dying. Lung cancer, medical bills piling up, mother crying every night about losing the house. And Daniel was there. Steady, stable Daniel, the bank manager's son who'd been courting me quietly for months, who offered security, who offered help. Marry me, Daniel had said in November 1978. I know you're waiting for someone else, but Josie, he's not coming back, and your family needs help now. I can help, and I promise I'll be good to you. I'd married him because it was practical, because my father was dying and we were drowning in debt, because I was 25 years old and tired of waiting for a man who'd stopped writing. Terry had written. He'd kept writing. I just never got the letters. I pressed the letter to my chest and felt something crack inside me. 45 years. 45 years of a practical marriage to a good man I liked but never quite loved the way I'd loved Terry. 45 years of choosing duty over desire, safety over passion. And now Terry was downstairs. In a wheelchair, yes. 70 years old, yes. But alive. Here. In the same house where I'd been living for 2 weeks, and I hadn't recognized him. Except I had recognized something. That first day when our eyes met, I'd felt something. That flicker of this person matters. That sense of coming home. I looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. I looked at the letter in my hands. I looked at the photograph of 2 24-year-olds who'd thought love was enough, and I started to cry. Monday, December 11th, 2023, 2:34 a.m. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph. Young Terry's face, young Josie's face, the way we'd looked at each other like we were the only two people in the world. At 2:34 a.m., I gave up trying. I put on my robe, thick blue terry cloth, nothing fancy, and took the photo album with me. I needed better light. I needed to be sure. The house was silent at this hour. Margaret lived in a separate apartment above the garage. Theodore's suite was on the first floor, but far enough from the stairs that I wouldn't disturb him. I made my way to the library. Big windows, good lamps for reading. I could look at the photographs properly, could convince myself I was being ridiculous. Because surely, if Theodore was Terry, he would have recognized me. Wouldn't he? Except 45 years changes a person. I was 68 now. Terry had last seen me at 25. I'd gone from dark brown hair to completely gray. I'd gained weight, then lost it during Daniel's illness. I had wrinkles, age spots on my hands. And he'd changed too. Silver hair where it had been dark. Age had refined his features rather than softening them. And the wheelchair, that would change how you held yourself, how you moved through the world. The library was dark except for the moonlight through the windows. I flipped on a table lamp and settled into one of the leather chairs. I opened the album again, studied the photographs methodically, scientifically, looking for proof. Young Terry's eyes, blue, distinctive shade of blue. Theodore's eyes, same blue, same exact blue. Young Terry's face, high cheekbones, strong jaw, straight nose. Theodore's face, same bone structure, just with 70 years of living etched into it. Young Terry's hands, long fingers, broad palms. Theodore's hands, same. I'd noticed because I'd helped him with physical therapy exercises. Young Terry's smile, slightly crooked, left side higher than right. Theodore's smile, when he actually smiled, rare, same asymmetry. Oh my God, I whispered to the empty library. It's him. It's actually him. It's who? I screamed, actually screamed, and dropped the album. Theodore was in the doorway, in his wheelchair, wearing pajama pants and a t-shirt. His hair was mussed from sleep. He looked confused and concerned. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I didn't mean to startle you. I heard someone moving around and He stopped, looking at the album on the floor where it had fallen open. Is that a photo album? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. He wheeled closer and I saw the exact moment he saw the photograph lying face up on the carpet. Millbrook Lake, summer 1977, yellow sundress, two 24-year-olds in love. Theodore went absolutely still, his face drained of color. His hands gripped the wheelchair arms so tightly his knuckles went white. Where did you get this? His voice was barely a whisper. It's mine. My voice shook. From a long time ago. He reached down, a difficult maneuver from the wheelchair, but he managed it, and picked up the photograph with trembling fingers. He stared at it for what felt like an eternity. Then slowly he looked up at me. Josie? The way he said it. The way he said my name. That old nickname that only one person had ever used consistently. Terry. The album fell from my lap. Neither of us moved to pick it up. Josephine Marie Brennan, he said slowly. From Millbrook, Connecticut. Cardiac nurse at St. Mary's Hospital. Father was Lawrence Brennan, mother was Patricia. You had a scar on your left knee from falling off your bicycle when you were 8 years old. I touched my knee automatically. The scar was still there, faded but visible. Theodore Terry Hawthorne, I whispered. From Millbrook, Connecticut. Went to Seattle in October 1977 to work in real estate. You were going to come back for me. I did come back for you. His voice broke. December 24th, 1978, Christmas Eve. I went to your parents' house. Your mother answered the door. She told me... He stopped, composed himself. She told me you'd married Daniel Fairmont 3 weeks earlier. The room spun. I waited for you, I said. Your letters stopped coming. Months went by. I thought you'd forgotten me. I never stopped writing. I wrote you every week, every single week. Oh. He was staring in the photograph like it might disappear. I have them still. Shoebox full of letters, all marked return to sender. What? The addresses were wrong. A single digit off. I was writing to 847 Maple Street, apartment 2B. You lived at 847 Maple Street, apartment 2C. But I got your early letters, the first 6 months. I moved apartments in Seattle, April 1978. Got a nicer place, set up my home office. Started using new stationery with the return address. He laughed bitterly. The print was small. I wrote the wrong apartment number, 2B instead of 2C. Every letter after that got returned. By the time I realized the mistake, you'd already... He stopped. Married Daniel, I finished. We sat in silence. The weight of 45 years pressed down on us. Did you love him? Theodore finally asked. Daniel, did you love him? The truth stuck in my throat. I cared for him. He was kind to me. But love, real love. I looked at the photograph on the floor. I only ever loved you that way, Terry. And I've spent 45 years trying to convince myself that practical love was enough. Theodore closed his eyes. I've spent 45 years alone. I told myself it was because I was too focused on business, too busy building an empire. He opened his eyes and they were wet. But the truth is simpler than that. How could I marry anyone else when the only woman I ever loved was married to someone else? You never married at all? Never. Not once? Not once. He looked at me directly. I hired private investigators, Josephine, over the years. I needed to know you were safe, that you were... He swallowed hard. That you were happy. My breath caught. You've been watching me? Not watching, just keeping track. I knew when Colette was born, when you moved to the house on Rosewood Street, when Daniel got sick, when he stopped. I'm sorry for your loss. You knew he died. I saw the obituary. I almost came to the funeral. I was in my car, 3 blocks from the church. His voice dropped. But I turned around. What right did I have to intrude on your grief? And then I showed up here. And then you showed up here. I didn't recognize you at first. 45 years changes a person. But there was something. He touched his chest. Something here that kept telling me you were important, that I knew you. When did you know for sure? Today? This morning? He laughed quietly. You were reading me the newspaper, and you mispronounced economics the same way you used to. Economics instead of economics. And suddenly I was 24 again, listening to you read me the newspaper in your apartment, mispronouncing words and not caring. I still do that, I whispered. I know. We looked at each other across decades of loss. What do we do now? I asked. Theodore picked up the photograph again, studied it. I don't know. I'm 70 years old, Josephine. I'm in a wheelchair. He gestured at himself, frustrated. I'm not the man in that photograph anymore. And I'm not the girl in the yellow sundress. No. He looked up at me. You're better, stronger. You've lived an entire life. You've raised a daughter. You've survived things that would have broken the 25-year-old girl. His voice softened. You're magnificent. I felt tears streaming down my face. I'm 68 years old, Terry. I'm unemployed. Well, except for working for you. My daughter just kicked me out of my home. I'm starting over with nothing. You're here, he interrupted. After 45 years, you're here. In my house. Taking care of me. Maybe, he stopped, seeming to gather courage. Maybe that means something. What does it mean? I don't know yet. He reached out his hand. But I'd like to find out. I took his hand. His grip was strong, warm, exactly as I remembered and completely different. We sat there, hands clasped, 2 70-year-olds who'd loved each other at 24, while the dawn started to break through the library windows. Terry? I said softly. Yes? I'm glad I found you again. Me too, Josie. He squeezed my hand. Me too. Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, 7:15 a.m. Coffee was ready on time. Theodore, Terry, sat at the breakfast table reading the Wall Street Journal, just like every morning. But everything was different. "Good morning," I said, setting his mug in exactly the right spot. He looked up, and those blue eyes, Terry's blue eyes, held something they hadn't before. Recognition, memory, pain and joy mixed together. "Good morning, Josie." Not Josephine, Josie. Margaret entered with breakfast, seemed to sense something in the air between us, and left more quickly than usual. "We need to talk," Theodore said after she left, "about what happens now." "I know. I'm your employer. You're my caregiver. That's a—" He paused, searching for words. "That's a power imbalance. You're here because you need this job. Because your daughter—" He stopped. "I won't take advantage of that." I sat down across from him. "I'm 68 years old, Terry. I know my own mind. And I know the difference between gratitude and—" I couldn't finish. "And what?" "And still loving someone after 45 years. His coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully. "You still—" "Yes. Simple. True. Do you?" "Every day since 1977. His voice was rough. "Every single day, Josie. I built an empire, made more money than God, bought houses and buildings and companies, and none of it mattered because the only thing I wanted was you, and you belonged to someone else." "I don't belong to anyone anymore." "No." He reached across the table for my hand. "But you're still grieving Daniel, and you're still dealing with Colette, and I'm still—" He gestured at his wheelchair. "I'm still broken." "You're not broken. You're paralyzed. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." I squeezed his hand. "Broken means unfixable. You're not unfixable, Terry. You're just different than you were." He was quiet for a long moment. "If we do this, if we try to see where this goes, it has to be honest. No pretending I'm not your employer. No pretending you don't need this job. We have to acknowledge the complications." "Agreed. And we go slow. Because, Josie, I've waited 45 years for you. I can wait a little longer to do this right." I smiled, felt tears threatening. "When did you become so careful?" "When I realized I might get a second chance I never expected." He brought my hand to his lips, kissed it gently. "I'm not losing you again because I rushed things." Scene 11, weeks 3-4, falling again. Wednesday, December 13th, evening. Theodore asked me to help him with his physical therapy stretches, something I'd been doing every night, but tonight felt different, more intimate now that we knew. "Josie," he said as I helped extend his leg. "Yes?" "Tell me about your marriage. I need to know." I took a breath. "Daniel was a good man. He was kind to me. He loved Colette absolutely. He provided for us. But he wasn't you? The truth, raw and simple. I tried to love him the way a wife should. And I did love him in a way, the comfortable way, the safe way. But passion, fire, that feeling of this person is the other half of my soul?" I shook my head. "That was only ever you." Theodore's jaw clenched. "I hate that you married him. I hate that he got 45 years with you that should have been mine. And I hate that you were alone all that time. We can't change the past." "No." I moved to his other leg. "But maybe we can make the time we have left matter." Thursday, December 14th. Colette called. 3:47 p.m. "Mom, I need you to sign more papers. About Daddy's estate. Can you come by Saturday?" "What kind of papers, Colette?" "Just final stuff. Legal stuff. The lawyer needs your signature." Something in her voice was off. "Can't he mail them to me?" "Mom, can you just come by? Please?" The please was unusual enough that I agreed. Friday, December 15th. The anniversary. 45 years to the day since Terry was supposed to meet me at Murphy's Diner. I found him in the conservatory at noon, staring out at the gardens. "You remembered," he said without turning around. Of course I remembered. I went to Murphy's anyway. December 15th, 1978. Waited there for 2 hours, even though I knew you wouldn't come. The waitress thought I'd been stood up. She gave me free pie. He laughed without humor. Cherry pie. You always ordered cherry pie. I sat beside him. I'm sorry. Don't be. You made the right choice. Daniel was there, present, offering you stability. I was a ghost who stopped writing. He finally looked at me. But Josie, I'd like to take you to Murphy's, if it's still there. If you'd like to go. I'd like that very much. Saturday, December 16th, noon. I stood outside my old house, Colette's house, holding a manila envelope she'd given me. Just legal releases, she'd said. Lawyer needs your signature that you're not contesting Daddy's will. But something felt wrong. Inside my purse, tucked into my wallet, was a photograph. Young Terry at Millbrook Lake. I'd taken it with me for courage. I opened the envelope in my car. The first page was standard. Final release and waiver of claims against the estate of Daniel Marcus Fairmont. The second page made my blood run cold. Acknowledgement of financial support. I, Josephine Marie Fairmont, acknowledge receiving financial support of $1,500, 00 monthly from Colette Marie Fairmont for housing and living expenses from November 27, 2023 to present. I agree that this support shall continue at the rate of $1,500 monthly for a minimum period of 36 months, with automatic withdrawal from my Social Security payments. 36 months. 3 years. At $1,500 a month. $54,000. More than 6 times my annual Social Security income. I kept reading, hands shaking. In the event that Josephine Marie Fairmont becomes unable to pay or fails to maintain employment providing minimum income of $4,000 monthly, Colette Marie Fairmont reserves the right to seek repayment of all support provided, plus reasonable collection fees. Colette was creating a debt, a legal obligation that would survive even if I quit my job. That would take everything I had. And at the bottom, already notarized, was her signature, and Michael's, as witness. All that was missing was mine. I sat in the car for exactly 3 minutes. Then I drove back to the Hawthorne mansion I'd spent Sunday and Monday gathering information, making calls, talking to the one person who might understand. Eleanor. That's financial exploitation, Eleanor had said, furious. She's trying to trap you. I know. You need to confront her, with witnesses. I know that too. Now it was Monday evening, 6:47 p.m., and I'd asked Theodore, Margaret, and Dr. Robert Hayes, the physical therapist who'd become a friend, to join me in the library, and I'd invited Colette. Mom, what's this about? Colette had asked on the phone. I'm busy. It's about the papers you wanted me to sign. I have questions. Please come. 7 o'clock. She'd heard something in my voice. Fine, but I can't stay long. Now we were gathered. Theodore in his wheelchair beside me, Margaret standing by the door, Dr. Hayes sitting on the sofa, and Colette arriving exactly at 7 o'clock p.m. in her Mercedes, wearing her business suit like armor. Mom, she nodded at the others. Mr. Hawthorne, I'm not sure why we need an audience for— Sit down, Colette. Something in my tone made her sit. I pulled out the papers she'd given me. I'd like you to explain these, specifically page 2. Colette glanced at the page, and I saw the flicker of concern before her professional mask slipped back on. It's just a formality. Documentation that I've been supporting you financially. For 3 weeks. You've been supporting me for exactly 21 days. Well, yes, but ongoing, at $1,500 per month for 36 months. $54,000. Theodore inhaled sharply. 54,000? With automatic withdrawal from my Social Security checks, I continued, my voice steady despite my shaking hands, which would leave me with negative $688 monthly. And if I can't pay, which I couldn't because the math is impossible, you have the right to seek repayment of the full amount plus collection fees. Colette's face was very still. Mom, you're misunderstanding. Am I? I pulled out more papers, printouts I'd made. I had a lawyer friend of Eleanor's review these. Would you like to know what she said? Silence. She said this document is legally binding, that if I'd signed it, I would have been obligated to pay you $54,000 over 3 years, or face collections, possible wage garnishment, and, this is the interesting part, possible liens against any future property or assets I might acquire. Future assets, Theodore said quietly, like if you inherited something, or married someone with assets. Colette's eyes darted to Theodore, then back to me. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. I pulled out another paper. Fact 1. My husband left everything to you. The house, his savings, his pension, everything. I received nothing. Daddy wanted to protect those assets. Fact 2. 3 weeks after his funeral, you told me to pay $1,500 monthly or leave. You knew I couldn't afford that. I offered you a job solution. Fact 3. You then tried to get me to sign a document that would legally obligate me to pay you $54,000 with terms that were financially impossible to meet. Margaret made a small sound. Dr. Hayes leaned forward, frowning. And fact 4, I continued, the timing. You gave me these papers to sign on December 16th, 1 week after I started working for Theodore, 1 week after you knew I'd found employment that paid well enough that I'd have assets worth pursuing. Mom, you're being paranoid. Am I? I looked at her directly. Tell me, Colette, when did you plan this? When your father was dying? Or after, when you realized I might actually become financially independent? The room was absolutely silent. Colette stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. You're my mother, and I was trying to help you. You were trying to exploit me. My voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. You saw an opportunity to create a permanent financial obligation that would prevent me from ever being truly free. And more than that. I had to pause, had to steady myself. You timed it deliberately. You waited until I was grieving, vulnerable, scared. You knew exactly what you were doing. That's not... Colette's professional mask cracked. I have my own family to think about. Michael lost his job, the twins need college, I have expenses. And so you decided to bleed your mother dry? To create a legal debt that would follow me for years? Theodore's voice was cold, sharp. Mrs. Fairmont, did your mother know your husband left you nothing in the will? Colette went very still. Answer the question, I said quietly. Daddy and I discussed it. He wanted the assets protected. Did you encourage that discussion? Theodore asked. Did you suggest that your mother was financially incompetent? That she needed to be protected from her own poor judgment? Colette's silence was answer enough. Oh, Colette, I whispered. Mom, I was protecting Daddy's legacy. You were protecting your inheritance. I stood up. And then you tried to ensure I could never threaten it by trapping me in permanent debt. Dr. Hayes cleared his throat. Mrs. Fairmont, Colette, I need to say something. I've been treating Mr. Hawthorne for 3 years. I've seen 17 caregivers come and go. Your mother is the first one who treats him like a person instead of a patient. The first one who's actually helping him heal, not just physically, but emotionally. He looked at me. If you'd signed those papers, if you'd been trapped in that debt, you would have had to leave this position eventually. The financial strain would have made it impossible to stay. Which was the point, Margaret said quietly. Wasn't it, Miss Fairmont? Keep your mother dependent. Keep her under your control. Colette's face flushed red. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like to have a mother who never worked, who never contributed, who was always just there, taking up space, expecting to be taken care of. I raised you. My voice broke. I gave up my career to raise you. I took care of your father through 5 years of cancer. I babysat your children every weekend for free for 8 years. I was there for every milestone, every crisis, every moment you needed me. And you expected gratitude for that? You expected me to support you forever? I expected basic human decency. The words came out louder than I intended. I expected my daughter to give me more than 3 weeks to grieve before kicking me out. I stopped, took a breath. I expected love, but apparently that was too much to ask. Colette grabbed her purse. I'm leaving. This is ridiculous. Before you go, Theodore said, his voice arctic, you should know something. I've already contacted my attorney. These papers you tried to get your mother to sign? They constitute attempted financial exploitation of an elder. In Connecticut, that's a criminal offense. Colette froze. You can't? I can, and I have. My attorney is filing a formal complaint with Adult Protective Services tomorrow morning. He wheeled closer to Colette. You won't be charged, probably. First offense, no actual harm done since your mother didn't sign, but it will be on record. And if you ever try anything like this again with your mother or anyone else, you'll face criminal charges. You can't do this to me. Do you know who I am? I'm a respected real estate agent who tried to financially exploit her own mother, Margaret said flatly. Colette looked at me, and for just a moment I saw something that might have been fear, or regret, or just anger at being caught. This isn't over, she said. Yes, I said quietly. It is. You have 2 choices, Colette. You can walk away now, accept that our relationship is deeply damaged but possibly salvageable with time and therapy. Or you can continue to threaten me, in which case Theodore's attorney will proceed with criminal charges. You'd do that? You'd have your own daughter arrested? You'd trap your own mother in permanent debt? I countered. We all make choices, Colette. Make yours. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned and walked out. The sound of her Mercedes starting up and driving away felt like a door closing. I sank back into my chair, suddenly exhausted. Theodore took my hand. Are you all right? No, I looked at him. But I will be. 2 days after the confrontation, I woke at 2:17 a.m. to Margaret pounding on my door. Mrs. Fairmont, I need you. It's Mr. Hawthorne. I was out of bed instantly, running down the hallway in my nightgown. Theodore was in his bedroom. In his bed, conscious but in obvious distress. His face was flushed bright red above the level of his injury, sweating, grimacing in pain. Severe headache, he managed to say. Started about 20 minutes ago. I pressed my fingers to his wrist. Pulse was racing, irregular. Margaret, call 911. Tell them possible autonomic dysreflexia. I turned to Theodore. When did you last catheterize? Before bed. 10 o'clock. 4 hours ago. I did a quick check. The catheter was kinked, blocking drainage. His bladder was distended, full. That was the trigger. I'm going to fix this, I said, straightening the catheter line. Almost immediately, drainage started. Theodore gasped in relief as his blood pressure began to drop. By the time the ambulance arrived, the crisis had passed, but the paramedics insisted on taking him to Hartford General for observation. I rode in the ambulance with him, holding his hand. You saved my life, he said quietly. That's what nurses do. No, he squeezed my fingers. That's what people who love each other do. At Hartford General, Dr. Patricia Walsh, the attending physician, examined Theodore thoroughly. I stayed in the room, answering questions about his medical history, his care routine. You're the caregiver? Dr. Walsh asked. Yes. You have nursing training? I was a cardiac nurse, long time ago. Well, your quick action probably prevented a stroke. She looked at Theodore. You're very lucky to have her, Mr. Hawthorne. I know. After she left, Theodore looked at me seriously. Josie, this is what my life is like. Medical emergencies, constant monitoring, the risk of complications. I could have another episode tomorrow, or a pressure ulcer, or a urinary tract infection that turns septic. He paused. This is what you'd be signing up for if we tried to make this into something more. I pulled a chair close to his hospital bed. Terry, I'm 68 years old. I've been a nurse for most of my life, if you count the 45 years I spent caring for a family. I know what medical crises look like. I know what it means to care for someone who needs help with basic functions. But I took care of Daniel through 5 years of cancer. Stage 4, metastatic. I cleaned wounds. I managed medications. I held his hand through chemotherapy. I was there when he died. I took Theodore's hand. This? What you have? This is just life. Complicated life, yes. But life. And I choose to live it with you, if you'll let me. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He pulled me closer, kissed my forehead. Then yes. God, yes. Theodore was released from the hospital Thursday afternoon with strict instructions. Better catheter care schedule, increased fluid intake, immediate response to any warning signs. When we got back to the mansion, I expected him to rest. Instead, he asked Margaret to help him into his chair and wheeled himself to the conservatory. Josie, can you come here? I found him by the windows, positioned where the afternoon light turned everything golden. What is it? Are you feeling all right? I need to ask you something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, dark blue, worn at the edges. My breath caught. This is the ring I was going to give you at Murphy's Diner. December 15th, 1978. I never returned it. Couldn't bring myself to. He opened the box. Inside was a diamond ring. Simple, elegant. Not huge, maybe half a carat, but beautifully cut. The band was white gold, slightly tarnished now. Josephine Marie Brennan Fairmont, he said, and his voice was steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I'm 70 years old. I'm in a wheelchair. I have medical complications and a questionable remaining lifespan. I can't offer you the life I dreamed of giving you when we were 24. Terry, but I can offer you this. I will love you completely for whatever time we have left. I will respect you, support you, and never take you for granted. I will make every single day count. He held out the ring. Will you marry me? I knelt beside his wheelchair, tears streaming down my face. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, as if 45 years had been waiting for this exact moment. It's not too fast? He asked. We've only been us again for 9 days. We've been us for 47 years, I corrected. We just had a 45-year interruption. He laughed, really laughed, and pulled me up to kiss him. His hands cradled my face, and it was the kiss we should have had 47 years ago. The kiss that said finally and always, and this is right. When we broke apart, Margaret was standing in the doorway with tears in her eyes and a bottle of champagne. I've been waiting 3 years for him to find happiness, she said. Congratulations. We married on February 14th, 2024, Valentine's Day, at Millbrook Lake, on the exact spot where that photograph had been taken 47 years ago. 30 people attended. Eleanor and her partner, Margaret, Dr. Hayes, some of Theodore's business associates, a few of my old nursing school friends. Colette did not come. I'd sent her an invitation. Theodore thought I shouldn't, but I had to try. She never responded. Now it was late June, and I was sitting on the back patio of the Hawthorne Mansion, my home now, legally and emotionally, watching the gardens in full bloom. Theodore wheeled out beside me, 2 glasses of lemonade on the tray attached to his chair. Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. Hawthorne. Mrs. Hawthorne. I still smiled every time I heard it. I was thinking about Colette. Have you heard from her? No, not since December. 6 months of silence. Eleanor says I should accept that our relationship may never recover. And what do you think? I paused, choosing words carefully. I think she's my daughter and I'll always love her, but I also think she's an adult who made choices that hurt me badly. And until she acknowledges that and makes genuine amends, I can't have her in my life. That's healthy and hard. Very hard. I sipped my lemonade. But you know what's not hard? This, us. Being married to you is the easiest thing I've ever done. Even with the medical drama? He gestured at himself. I'm high maintenance, Josie. So am I. I leaned over to kiss him. We're perfectly matched in our complicated needs. The sound of a car in the driveway made us both look up. A silver Mercedes. My stomach clenched. Colette got out, moving slowly, nervously. She wasn't alone. Michael was with her, and the twins. "Mom," Colette called from across the lawn. Can we talk?" I looked at Theodore. He squeezed my hand. "Your call." I stood up, walked across the lawn, met my daughter halfway. "Colette." "Mom." She looked older, tired. I need to apologize. I've been in therapy since January, working through a lot of things." She took a shaky breath. "I was wrong about everything. The papers, the ultimatum, trying to control you. I was angry and scared, and I took it out on you, and that was unforgivable." "It hurt," I said simply. "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Tears streamed down her face. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I know I need to earn that. But I'm asking for a chance to try to rebuild our relationship, slowly, with boundaries and honesty." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, saw the genuine remorse, the fear of rejection, the hope. "Why now?" I asked. "Because the twins graduate next week, and I realized you weren't going to be there, and that killed me." She wiped her eyes. "Because I saw your wedding announcement in the paper, and I realized you'd found happiness without me, and I understood, finally understood, that I'd pushed away the best person in my life." Michael stepped forward. "Mrs. Fairmont, Mrs. Hawthorne, I owe you an apology, too. I should have spoken up when Colette was pressuring you. I should have been better." I looked at all of them, Colette, Michael, the twins who were watching nervously. "Come sit," I finally said. "Meet my husband properly. Have some lemonade. We'll talk." Colette's face flooded with relief. Thank you, Mom." "I'm not promising anything except conversation," I warned. "We have a lot to work through." "I know. I'll do whatever it takes." As we walked back to the patio together, Theodore caught my eye, raised his glass in a small salute. "Proud of you," his expression said. 3 hours later, after Colette's family left, with plans to return for dinner the following week, Theodore and I sat in the conservatory watching the sunset. "Think she'll follow through?" he asked. "I don't know, but I'm willing to give her a chance to prove it." I nestled against his shoulder. "I learned something these past 6 months." "What's that?" "That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean accepting bad behavior or letting people back in without boundaries. It means choosing not to let past hurt poison your future happiness." Wise words from Mrs. Hawthorne. I had a good teacher. I kissed him. "You taught me that it's never too late to start over, that love can survive decades of separation, that second chances are real." "We taught each other," he corrected. As the sun set over the gardens, painting everything in gold and pink, I thought about the strange path that had led me here. Widowed at 68, kicked out by my daughter, desperate enough to take a job with a stranger who turned out to be my first love. Some people would call it coincidence. Eleanor called it fate. Theodore called it statistics. Given enough time, unlikely things become probable. I called it grace. The kind of grace that gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it, even if it takes 47 years to arrive. "Josie?" Theodore's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Yes?" "I love you. I've loved you since 1977, and I'll love you until the day I die." "I love you too, Terry. Always have, always will." And there, in the home we'd built together, we watched the day end and the stars begin to emerge. 2 70-year-olds who'd found their way back to each other against all odds. We'd lost 45 years, but we'd make the most of whatever time we had left. Together. I'm Josephine Hawthorne. I'm 69 years old. A year ago, I thought my life was over. Widowed, homeless, rejected by my only child. I thought 68 was too old to start over, too old to find happiness, too old to matter. I was wrong. This morning, I woke up next to the man I've loved for 48 years. We had coffee at 7:15 a.m. exactly. Some routines never change. We work together in the garden. He directs, I dig. We both laugh at our combined incompetence with roses. Colette came for Sunday dinner. She comes every week now, part of her commitment to rebuilding our relationship. It's still complicated. There's still hurt to work through. But we're trying, and that matters. The twins start college in the fall. Theodore, against my protests, has set up education funds for both of them. Family takes care of family, he said. And they're family now. Sometimes I think about the alternative timeline. The one where I signed Colette's papers, where I never found out Theodore's identity, where I spent my remaining years trapped and small and forgotten. That's not this timeline. In this timeline, I learned that age is just a number, that love doesn't expire, that starting over at 68 is not just possible, it's powerful. I learned that you don't owe anyone your happiness. Not your children, not your past, not even the memory of a good man you married for practical reasons. I learned that the greatest victory isn't revenge or wealth or proving someone wrong. The greatest victory is peace. Waking up each morning knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, with exactly who you're supposed to be with. And I learned that 45 years of separation is long. But when you're with the right person, you have all the time in the world. Even if all the time in the world is just a few more years, we'll make them count. This evening, Theodore and I will go to Millbrook Lake. We'll sit on that same bench where a photograph was taken in 1977. We'll watch the sunset. Hold hands. Be grateful. Because at 69 and 71, we've learned the most important lesson. Life doesn't give you what you deserve. It gives you what you make of what you're given. And we're making something beautiful.